Hey friends, it's Rabbi Jenny Solomon at Beth Myers Synagogue in Raleigh, North Carolina, here with a mincha moment inspired by this week's Torah portion, Parashat Vayera, which is full of so many parts of the Genesis story, of Abraham's story in particular, including Sarah and Isaac and some of the people that come into their constellation of narratives. In any case, at the very end of this week's Torah portion, we have the binding of Isaac, Akedat Yitzchak, which we not only read as part of the regular Torah cycle, but we also read over Rosh Hashanah. So we've revisited that story not too long ago. And of course, Abraham is commanded to take his son Yitzchak, Isaac, up on this mountain and nearly sacrifice him. Thankfully, that does not occur. There is an angelic intervention, and Abraham holds his hand, having passed God's test for Abraham. But as we can imagine, Yitzchak, there bound on the wood, ready to be sacrificed, was probably traumatized for life. And for that reason, one of the attributes that is attributed to Yitzchak for the rest of his life is that of pachad, or yirah, fear. Usually it's called, especially within Chassidut and Kabbalah, pachad Yitzchak. This quality of fear that is forever associated with Isaac. And I want to suggest that in meditation, in prayer, in any kind of contemplative practice, we have the gift of being able to watch fear among every other human experience arise. And I've spoken about this before, but I thought it would be worth revisiting. There are at least two different kinds of significant fear that are referred to in Jewish text. One is pachad and one is yirah. And I think it's helpful to understand the difference a little bit because, of course, these fears also, these qualities, animate our existence in our everyday lives. And if we understand them better, my experience is that we can use them more wisely as we navigate the inevitable challenges and blessings that life has to offer each one of us. So pachad is a kind of fear. It's a more sort of like lizard brain, projected worst case scenarios. It's kind of an ego-driven fear. It's imagined fear. And again, none of this is to put any of this down. It's actually a part of, I believe, the evolved quality of the human brain that we can anticipate these sort of worst case scenarios. I am an expert in this kind of fear, pachad. Okay, this is the anxiety as we imagine all the horrible things that people could say, that could happen to the people that we love. This is pachad. And when we experience pachad, especially as we watch it arise in our mindfulness practice, it can often be an invitation to self-soothe, to offer oneself compassion, to offer oneself nurture, and just wrap yourself in a lot of love. Because these fears are actually incredibly adaptive and self-protective, right? If we imagine the worst possible thing to happen or what we're projecting could possibly happen, in some sense, we can be more prepared. But of course, these things haven't happened, and in all likelihood, they won't happen. And if we act from that place of pachad all the time, we can really do ourselves great harm, unnecessary suffering. Yirah is very different. So yirah is that sense, it's often translated as awe or reverence, but it has a fear quality. It has that feeling like when we're stepping on sacred ground, or we begin to imagine or step into a dream for ourselves that feels bigger than what we might have imagined in the past. And we have some fear around that, some awe around that. Anyone who has become a parent, who has taken on a new job, who has moved from one sort of age and stage in life to the next, who has retired, all those big changes, they can come with them this quality of yirah. But unlike pachad, when we experience yirah, we really sense that the fear is driven from this sense of the bigness, the possibility, the mystery, the sacredness of whatever that next possibility is, even if it's a little scary. My response would be to step on the gas. That in all likelihood, that call, that felt sense, that has a quality of fear, but is more grounded in sort of that sense that we're a part of something bigger, that's an invitation to take the next step forward. So I want to just conclude by saying that I have a lot of compassion for Yitzchak, for what it must have been like to go on the rest of his life having had that encounter with his father up on that mountain. And all of us have moments, traumatic moments of varying degrees that change us. And all of us as human beings are wired, healthy human beings are wired to have experiences of fear. And our mindfulness practice, our prayer practice, our spirituality, I believe, can invite us to take a closer look when those fears arise and notice what kind of fear they are. Maybe the categories of pachad and yirah resonate and make sense for you. Maybe not. Maybe you have other kind of language. But I think our understanding, our more acute, sensitized understanding of the experience of fear can help us discern how we move forward. And sometimes how we move forward is just to take good care of ourselves and come back to this moment and breathe. And sometimes how we move through fear is actually just to keep moving. Peace. Shalom.